Now it's time for the morning trade, and we get you ready because DoorDash is set to report its earnings today after the closing bell. Schwab Network's Marley Kayden is with us. Good morning, Marley.
Good morning, Nicole. Like you said, DoorDash expected to report after the close today, looking for EPS of about 42 cents, which would be a more than 200% year-over-year improvement from their loss of 38 cents a share in the year-ago quarter. Revenue expected to be up about 20% year-over-year. That should come in around $3.16 billion based on estimates. But DoorDash has had a really strong rally this year. No, stock's up 52% year-to-date, and the shares reached a new intraday record high yesterday of 259.87. So they're going to be put to the test this afternoon. Big number, very important number for them is their marketplace gross order volume. They're expected to have benefited from strong total orders, and that number is expected to come in at about $23.61 billion, which would be close to 20% growth year over year. Also expected to value from some logistics efficiencies that they put into place and some increased advertising contributions. As far as their Q3 guidance, looking for that GOV number, the gross order value number of about $23.83 billion. And we've already seen how important the guidance component is this earnings season. So that number will be closely in focus. I think also investors will be very focused on their international strategy. DoorDash acquired a UK delivery firm called Deliveroo and also a hospitality software firm called 7 Rooms. And those were both massive deals, $3.9 billion for Deliveroo, $1.2 billion for 7 Rooms. So I think a lot of questions about how that's going to expand their international presence and move them into markets beyond restaurant-based delivery, which they continue to say they want to be in.
Yeah, and I think that's a big part of the story when you talk about penetration and what is the opportunity to expand. It certainly seems like there can be a lot of growth for a name like DoorDash, right?
Absolutely, and I think that international component appears to be the right target, just looking at a competitor. Uber came out this morning. They had a beat on revenue. They had EPS that was in line, but their delivery, their gross bookings, were up 20% year over year, which is about the same expectation that DoorDash is looking for. But they made a point to note that for Uber Eats specifically, in some international markets, the delivery service for Uber Eats is actually more popular than the ride-hailing app. So that would indicate that cross-platform activity is a good sales growth driver, and it would certainly make sense why DoorDash is looking to diversify itself on the international scale.
Marley Kayden, great to see you. Thank you so much. We continue to watch. I mean, I think the point about Uber Eats is great too, right? Everybody's using that. So much to discuss. Scott Bauer, CEO of Prosper Trading Academy, is with us, and he's taking a look at Dash, which today is trading at 256. How would you go about an example trade?
Hi there, Nicole. Yeah, what you and Marley just talked about, absolutely. You know, we're seeing stocks at all-time highs, and they've got a pretty big bar that they've got to hit here. The market's pricing in about a 10% move in either direction, so about a $25 move or so in either direction. To the upside, obviously, there's nothing from a technical standpoint because we're already at all-time highs. The downside, though, there is a lot of support at the 50-day moving average, which is right around 230 or so. So what I'm looking at with the expensive implied volatility, the expensive option premium, I'm going to sell an iron condor for this week, meaning that I'm going to sell both a call spread and a put spread. So everything expires this Friday, two plus days. I'm going to sell on the downside the 235, 227.5 put spread. On the upside, I'm going to sell the 277.5, 285 call spread. So each one is $7.50 wide. I can collect about $3.25 on that. So it's something where I'm definitely looking for more of a range-bound trade, or at least for the stock to remain within that $25 move, that expected move. So Friday, by the end of the day, my break-evens would be 231.75 on the downside and 280.75 on the upside. So I've got about almost a $50 window there. And the reason I trade spreads on both sides, Nicole, is because if there is a blowout move, one side or the other here, I know what my maximum risk is.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it. Protecting yourself. All right, Scott, how do you feel about the market overall?
You know, it's such a resilient market at this point. You know, there's so many questions still, but yet we continue to grind higher. It's obviously last Friday, and we had a big drawdown. Monday we got it all back, and yesterday was a little iffy. I'm actually surprised that we're modestly higher this morning, given what we saw with AMD earnings, SMCI. I would have thought that maybe that would have hit the market a little bit more, but very resilient. But you know what? Again, this is a time that could maybe catch some people off guard here. Time to, as we always talk about, just make sure you have a little bit of protection.
And you know what? I mean, you're really showing the resilience of the market. As you said, you're surprised even to see the up arrows today. You think that, is this the wall of worry? Is this maybe people expecting the rate cut coming?
Yes, there's no question about that. And I think that some anticipation about a change at the Fed, which we know is going to happen, even if it's not until next year, that the administration is possibly going to put someone in that aligns with President Trump, always looking for lower rates here. So I think that trajectory for the lower rates is a positive one for the markets. But we've got to be careful, because if we get rate cuts because the economy is slowing, because things are weakening, that's not a great scenario necessarily. So we have to be careful what we wish for here, but there's a lot of optimism out there right now.
All right, Scott Bauer, CEO of Prosper Trading Academy. Always great to see you, Scott. Thank you so very much.